Lately, we are facing many questions like how to retain talent, how to keep culture aligned in different time zones and different continents. And I think we are helping companies addressing that. Other question that comes into mind when I talk and I understand when I talk to HR leaders is how we can uncover hidden needs and what does it mean? Not all the challenges are documented in with RFPs or job descriptions. Sales conversations often expose under the surface issues like slow onboarding in global teams, lack of local HR expertise in new markets, or even more complicated frustration with current tools or vendors. The last but not the least, I would say that it is important to understand the language that HR uses. Listening to how HR teams describe their challenges helps align your messaging, product features, and value propositions with the actual wording and framing your audience uses. This sharpens your pitch and marketing. So this helps us at RemoFirst direct the product and to align the product with the specific needs of our customers.
Welcome back to the Freedom of Work podcast, the podcast by RemoFirst, where we explore global hiring, how it's evolving, and what that means for HR leaders everywhere. And today I'm really excited to be joined by Fernando. He's one of our incredible senior account executives here at RemoFirst. Fernando, take it away.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the introduction and thanks for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here, hosted by you. Like you said, my name is Fernando. I'm Portuguese. I'm based out of sunny Lisbon. I do work in sales for the last 24 years, and I was blessed to RemoFirst, a company that I joined in November 2022 to work for Salesforce, LinkedIn, or Symantec. And I'm very blessed to be here with you today because EOR or employee of record means a lot to me, and I'm more than happy to dig deeper into the topic. Thank you.
We're going to unpack what HR leaders are prioritising in 2025. It's the questions that everybody's asking, it's the misconceptions, and it is those trends. And Fernando is the person that is on the ground speaking to those people. He has that front row seat to all of the trends, questions, and challenges that these teams are facing in real time. So, Fernando, I'd love to delve into how and why these sales conversations that you're having is a true goldmine for understanding HR challenges.
So that's a very interesting topic. So all the conversations with the HR leaders, they are really gold mine because it helps us in sales to understand what they're delving in to achieve, what their challenges. But out of my mind, I can, point at least 3 or 4 questions. One is, what is their direct access to pain points? So during sales calls that we have here at RemoFirst, prospects often explain why they are looking for a solution, like a EOR, revealing current bottlenecks like hiring inefficiencies, compliance risks, retention issues, or remote work struggles. These are gold for understanding what keeps HR leaders up at night, right? So lately, we are facing many questions like how to retain talent, how to keep culture aligned in different time zones and different continents. And I think we are helping companies addressing that. Other question that comes into mind when I talk and I understand when I talk to HR leaders is how we can uncover hidden needs and what does it mean? Not all the challenges are documented in with RFPs or job descriptions. Sales conversations often expose under the surface issues like slow onboarding in global teams, lack of local HR expertise in new markets, or even more complicated frustration with current tools or vendors. The last but not the least, I would say that it is important to understand the language that HR uses. Listening to how HR teams describe their challenges helps align your messaging, product features, and value propositions with the actual wording and framing your audience uses. This sharpens your pitch and marketing. So this helps us at RemoFirst direct the product and to align the product with the specific needs of our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that all the sort of struggles that you're finding, the lack of expertise is definitely something that we're trying to showcase, especially with our content and podcasts, and showing that we have that knowledge to help you. And the different languages out there. And I think it's key to show that, especially you or someone that sees those HR challenges as a first off point. But let's delve into that then and see. I know you sort of mentioned a few challenges, but what trends are you noticing when startups hiring globally are sort of hiring from day one?
So startups hiring globally from day one is becoming the norm, first of all, not the exception. And the top trends that are emerging in this space, from my experience, I would say number one, it's that talent is everywhere, but the opportunity is not, right? So what companies can do to retain that talent and to hire that talent compliantly. I'm going to give you an example. Over 12 years ago, I was forced to move from Lisbon and relocate myself in Dublin just because the company I was working for, they didn't have a legal entity in Portugal, right? So, and back in the days, to keep working for the company that we loved, you need to relocate for a country and move away from your family. Nowadays, if that company will exist 10 years ago, I will be working from Lisbon without the need to relocate in Ireland, for example. But I did love it to move to Ireland. But I would say talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. So startups are no longer limiting themselves to local talent pools. So from the outset, they are hiring the best in class talent regardless the location. They are prioritizing skills and culture fit over geography, and they build distributed teams across time zones to enable near 24/7 operations. That's number one. Number two, I would say compliance is the front of mind early, right? What does it mean? Global hiring used to be reactive. We found someone great. How do we hire them legally? Now founders and early ops teams are thinking about compliance proactively with tools like EOR, in this case, employer of record, in place from day one to avoid misclassification risks, tax and payroll issues, or permanent establishment triggers. That's very important for companies nowadays. Number three, I would say hiring strategically around time zones. So rather than just remote anywhere, startups are looking into creating regional hubs. Example, a Latin America pods or APAC support team, aligning work hours across overlapping zones to keep async plus sync work balanced.
Yeah.
This is very important, right?
Yeah.
The fourth will be equity and benefits globalization. Okay, so more early stage startups are figuring out one, how to offer equity globally from day one, building global benefits packages, not just US centric perks, or partnering with vendors to offer localized support. That's very important. So even though your company is based off the UK, how we can, offer the same global packages to make everyone feels part of the team. So startups today want to speed, they want to flexibility and compliance in global hiring. They are building lean, RemoFirst teams with infrastructure that supports global scale without the traditional red tape. And the question is how not only startups, but they are just growing lean, but how enterprise companies can look into EOR as the new tool to expand even faster or to reduce costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you covered some amazing things there. I think, firstly, as you mentioned, it's for focusing on these startups because these are the people that are going to be scaling and hiring and trying to get as much talent in as possible. But as you said, the area, the country where they're based, that can be now anywhere if they're using an EOR. And the norm used to be, you had to move to Dublin, which I'm sure was nice, but at the same time, it meant you had to change your complete life. So if there was no legal entity set up there, it means that, you have to go to Dublin and you have to work for that office. So I think how the times are changing, and they're changing a lot faster now than maybe 10 years ago when people were doing a lot more in-person things, faxing a CV into a computer and things. Like, this norm is quickly changing, and I think like 90% of startups are now starting as a remote basis. So this is only going to push more people to want to hire in countries that they aren't currently in, and more people to hopefully use an EOR. So that's a great point. Time zone strategy, I really love this because asynchronous communication is key to a remote company. or hybrid company, because we're quite lucky to actually be on the same time zone, but there's a lot of people spread across the world. But I think this asynchronous and synchronous time zones really does help to create business success, because if you can meet with someone at a certain time, but also create documentation and keep that going there, I think it's key to sort of keep those two in mind. So I really enjoyed that. And the global benefits, of course. You have to sort of think about those trends and what your competitors are doing, what's unique to that person, what's unique to that country, and making sure that, again, you're creating a global benefits package or a local benefits package that is tailored for them to keep that top talent. But finally, compliance, because that is at the forefront of everyone's minds now, which is a good thing, because maybe in the past this is something that wasn't covered enough. But do you think that HR teams are leaning more towards speed or compliance when making these decisions?
It's a very good question. So it depends on the context, right? But most HR teams today are striving for a balance with a growing tilt toward compliance, especially in a global or regulated environments. If you stop to think about a startup company that is just created and they want just to scale up very fast, they need speed.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want compliance, but they are looking into the speed. If you look into the enterprise accounts, like a company over 500 employees, they are looking to regulations, they are looking to compliance, they are looking to everything. So I would say when compliance takes priority, so global hiring in EOR, HR teams expanding into new countries or using EOR services like RemoFirst are laser focused on legal compliance, avoiding misclassification, and protecting the company from legal risk. That's very important.
Yeah.
Then data privacy concerns, right? So with GDPR and other regulations, HR must ensure the candidate and the employee data is handled correctly. When speed leads into the conversation, so startups and scale-ups in fast-growing companies, the pressure for fill roles quickly, especially technical roles or sales roles positions, can outweigh compliance concerns, particularly when teams are small and wearing many hats. Then we have high volume hiring. So for companies scaling rapidly, a smooth and fast process is a competitive advantage, especially in tight talent markets, right? So I think here we have an advantage, right? So some companies, they're going to start looking into hire fast, and sometimes fast is looking for the talent in locations where they were not thinking before. For example, countries like Ukraine or Poland or Serbia, they are fully off talent when it comes to technology companies. That may be an advantage. So the real trend, in my opinion, and from the meetings I have every day with customers globally, compliance without compromise the speed, right?
Yeah.
So modern HR teams increasingly look for solutions that offer both compliance backed into fast, intuitive processes. That's where platforms like ours, RemoFirst, add value. You don't have to choose. You get speed and peace of mind, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think they're key. It completely depends on the context of what they're hiring for. Maybe the position is a head of sales position, and that's going to maybe take a little bit longer because they maybe need a longer interview process. But maybe, for example, they are looking for a high bulk hire of salespeople, so they may need that to be a lot faster. But they have to make sure that they are compliant throughout with all of this. It doesn't matter what the role is or how fast they want to, it needs to stay compliant, which is exactly why a EOR fits perfectly into this. So I think you've touched on some really good points there about the different trends and the important shifts in like mindset and strategy that these startups are starting to think about when they're hiring. But I imagine with this hiring change and remote hiring, that people come to you, or hiring managers, people ops teams, and there is a lot of common traps, misunderstanding, misconceptions, and they may not get the full story. So I think with you being at the forefront of that, you understand a lot of these misconceptions and you'll be able to help out with that. So I'd love to go into this and discuss what the biggest misconception is that HR leaders have about EOR. There may be more than one, but yeah, I think it'd be good to sort of start at that point and we can delve into that then.
The industry is very well started to be very well known because we're helping fixing very important challenges in the industry. But in reality, a good employer of record vendor is a long-term strategic partner, especially for companies hiring globally without setting up entities. Even though when HR leaders coming to us with a misconception, we as the sales advisories, we are here to support them, explaining how they can hire compliantly, what's the difference between a PEO, a EOR, or a contractor model. So one misconception that I find very often is an EOR means losing control over my employees, right? So using EOR, I'm going to hire someone who is going to manage the talent. I'm going to lose the control on the talent. So HR leaders often worry of that outsourcing employment to an EOR will distance them from their employees. That's not totally true. So they are not losing the visibility, the control, or even the control of the culture or the ability to manage performance effectively. In reality, an EOR handles legal employment, right? So I like to say that we become the HR workforce outside the countries where they don't have a legal presence. So we take care of payroll, taxes, compliance, contracts, but they will retain full control over the day-to-day operations, work expectations, and company culture. That's very important. Then employees hired via an EOR report to them, follow their processes, and align with their company mission and vision. They were their team just without the legal or administrative burden on your entity. So we take care of that. Modern EORs offer transparent processes and collaboration tools to ensure HR teams stay informed and in control, right? The last, as a global hiring becomes the norm, the EOR model is becoming a core part of the modern HR strategy. We are not a backup plan. And this is not a feature, this is a reality. And companies that don't adopt an employer of record strategy, they will start to be at the back on the game because other companies they will adopt. Let me give you an example, Leah, and sorry. EOR companies they start to strive after and during COVID, right? And the reality was during COVID, many people they left the UK or Ireland, they relocated in the south of Spain or in Portugal. And then one day, companies, when COVID, ends, the company said, "Hey, CFO, can you come back to the office because the office are open. Can you please go back to the office?" And they said, "Hey, you know what? I'm in Spain. I'm in Alicante. I was working here for the last 2 years. I'm married to a Spanish woman. I don't want to go back to the UK." So, and now what? And that's where EOR companies started to play a very important role because these companies, they didn't want to lose their talent. They want to keep it, how they can do it in a compliant way. And that's where EOR and companies like ours thrive very fast. And we have to keep going very fast in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that first point, which is something that people all worried about, is losing control over employees because, yeah, like the whole point is that you're utilizing us rather than losing control. You have full control over that culture, mission, values, because that they're working for you. But I think it's really important to make sure that people aren't losing control because that's the last thing we would want to happen as a business. We want that business to succeed, and the reason that they're using this EOR is so they can find the best talent for their business to succeed and have full control over all of that. So yeah, that's a really great point to make. 100% if people don't adopt an EOR strategy sooner rather than later and they're not finding the right talent in their country, there might be something really niche that they're looking for. I know AI engineers are now like one of the highest look after employee at the moment. So that role is going to start shooting up. And if there's no people there, they're going to have to go outside of their country. So that's really important to look at. And then obviously, as I said, someone, for example, in Spain, if they were going back to their office, the people after COVID, they had these cost of offices. So people are trying to get people back into the offices, and that's not, people are shaping the way that they work now, and it's changing dramatically. So I think if the companies don't sort of jump on that bandwagon, then it's going to not be beneficial for the business success, which is why people do need to be adopting that shift in mindset. And then I know you've sort of touched on that people overlooking misconception of using EOR, but how often do you see like the benefits or visa considerations being overlooked as well?
To be honest with you, way too often. Okay, so in the rush to hire international talent, many teams forget to ask important questions like what benefits are expected in that country. Right? They are not the local experts, so they rely on companies like us to help them. Are we offering a competitive local package? So we, as the experts, are going to guide them to see what's the best in country to offer and which salaries and which packages, if private medical insurance is mandatory or not, what companies in the same industry they're offering to their employees, and we help our customers to understand how to be compliant in many jurisdictions. Does this hire require visa support or relocation? So we are here at RemoFirst. We are watching the need for certain companies to help certain individuals moving from countries to another. And sometimes they are, Indian citizens moving to the UK. They need visa sponsorship. They need the guidance how to do it compliant. When we have that capacity to do it here, we help our customers managing that topic. And questions like, are we intentionally creating a compliance risk? Right. So I'm doing the right things or I'm doing the wrong things. So we are here to guide them even though in that process. So skipping these details can lead to poor retention, brand damage, or worse, legal trouble. At RemoFirst, we see this all the time. That's why having the right global infrastructure from the start really matters. Global hiring is not just about payroll, it's about people.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. That's exactly what it's there for. And I think people need to realize that these benefits and visa considerations, as I said, for example, for the benefits, um, need to stay competitive as well. And I think that needs to be looked at as a whole of the package when you're hiring someone. I think people are rushing too fast to hire someone and not actually realizing the complexities of hiring in a new country. And that's exactly why we are there to help you through that with local partners and those teams being there. To help you create a competitive package, whether that's a global or local package with Remote Health Local. But we are able to do that. And as I said, that's going to lead to a lot higher retaining talent, but also engaging that talent in the first place. Because if you can offer a competitive package, you can give those employees sort of an expectation of what they will be coming to that company, and it helps you get that talent and then retain that talent, I think is the key thing there as well. um I really, yeah, I think it's really key looking at those challenges and then those sort of misconceptions and mistakes, because I think it's sort of going through that. But I know as you are at the forefront of these conversations and you've shared a little bit of insight into those conversations that you had and examples, but I'd love to sort of break it down and go through a few different examples of maybe what you've experienced and how RemoFirst has helped to change that, whether that's anonymously, of course. But I'd like to go into some different examples of where early planning saved a client from a major compliance risk. I know we've spoke about compliance and speed, but those two things, if they're not done correctly, yeah, can cause a problem. So yeah, I'd love to go into this and see it in a little bit more detail.
Sure. So I can share the story of a client, a very ambitious startup expanding rapidly into Europe. So they were planning to hire several remote employees in different countries. So early on, they consulted us to map out the local employment laws, tax implication, and payroll requirements before making any offer. So they come to us before they offer the conditions to the employees. This is very important. And during this planning phase, we identified a critical issue. Without proper local employment setup, the company risks creating a permanent establishment in one country. This could trigger significant corporate tax liabilities and legal penalties in that case. And that because they engage early with RemoFirst, we structure the hires to remain full compliantly, handling local contracts, payroll, and benefits. This save this customer from costly fines and the complicated tax audit down the line. So in this specific example, for this international company, the lesson is early compliance planning isn't just bureaucracy. It's a strategic safeguard that protects your business as you scale globally. And that's important when companies they rely these matters on companies like RemoFirst because they should take care of their business and we take care of the compliance, the hiring process, and the payroll, managing the benefits. That's why we are in the business and we are the experts on that topics.
Yeah, exactly. I think people need to realize that even though, as you said, you want to do something fast, I think the key is the compliance part because people may not realize that there is these legal penalties. I think someone coming firstly into the space, they may think, oh, we'll be able to hire someone there, no one will realize. But the second they realize that in the country, they're not paying those taxes, they're under a different payroll system, they're not getting the right benefits, the employee's also going to realize that. And there's going to be a lot of confusion for HR teams in the business, but also the employee. And they're going to lose that talent fast. So I think people need to realize that, and companies need to realize that there is also legal penalties involved if you aren't compliant. And with Neo, our service, that we are safeguarding you from that with those local and partners. They're the experts. They know the right healthcare companies, the people to call on the ground in that country. And I think it's important to note that so that you're completely compliant throughout. I think that's a really
100%.
big point. And then, is there any sort of stories of companies that grew rapidly because they had the right EOR setup in place? I think that's something that a lot of companies, and especially startups, are wanting to do at the moment because they're wanting to scale at speed and show that their business is successful. And I think if you can show that through hiring a high amount of employees and obviously not overturning and becoming in debt because you have too many employees, but keeping at a high rate of employee growth, then I think it's a good story to share. So yeah, I'd love to delve into that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about a tech startup wanted to scale its engineering team across multiple countries quickly, but without the time or resources to set up legal entities everywhere. And I'm just thinking about back in the days, 20 years ago, someone from Portugal wanted to expand to Spain, how bureaucratic and how costly, how timely was to do it. So in this case, by partnering early with RemoFirst, we were able to hire top talent in Latin America, Europe, in fact, within weeks, ensure full compliance with local labor laws and payroll regulations, focus on product and market growth instead of administrative edges, right? So they just care about their own business, not needed to take care of am I compliant? Do I need to pay social security? Is the employment contract right? So we took care of that on their behalf. And between 12 months, their international team grew by 5x. They accelerated the product development and market entry without the typical risks or delays. This example shows how the right EOR setup isn't just a convenience, it's a growth accelerator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the point. If you're launching in a new market, you're not just hiring, but you're firstly building a local presence that supports a new business development, new product strategy. And if you skip all of those benefits, ignore visa needs, that's going to only stall your product and market growth. And I think it needs to be key and but it also needs to be sustainable, because if people are building in a new country and the packages weren't competitive and there were legal risks, then this is only going to mean that the HR team have to then jump in, and then that doesn't mean that they can focus on the business itself. So I think it truly takes that away, and it allows them to grow on the product and the market, which is exactly what the business wants to be doing there. I really think that's a great point. And then moving into that sort of remote hiring, that's sort of the conversation theme that we've been really going into today. And I think it's a key trend that, of course, we are really big advocates of. So I'd love to sort of know about a conversation or something that you've seen that has really shifted a company's thinking about remote hiring. Perhaps that was something that they weren't looking at and they were just inquiring about something else. But yeah, I'd like to delve into that a little bit more.
So every day I talk to companies, but one day I spoke to a startup struggling to decide whether to hire remote or talent abroad. And the leadership team was concerned about losing control and complicating compliance, right? So during the conversation that I had with the head of HR and the legal team, we walked them through real scenarios of local labor law, payroll complexities, and how EOR partners can handle this seamlessly. But the real game changer was when we reframed remote hiring not as a risk, but as a strategic advantage, right? So we are enlightened how global talent access can fuel innovation, extend market hours, and diversify perspectives, right? So why hiring in Serbia and not hiring, for example, in Colombia, where the talent is cheaper and the cost for the employer is even cheaper too, for example? They began to see remote hiring as an enabler of growth rather than a hurdle. And by the end, their mindset had shifted from cautious to excitement, and their commitment to build a truly global team with the right compliance foundation was a reality, right? I think we are lucky to be in this industry, to become the trust advisors, to educate the market, to educate the HR leaders that this is happening now, right? So if you don't take that boat, if you don't take that train, our competitors will take, and they're going to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we speak about that remote hiring, it's people don't think as you said, they may be losing control and it's not a logistical decision. But it's a way to fill roles quicker, and you can widen your talent pool, you can diversify the thoughts that are going into that product. But companies need to treat it not as a checkbox saying we hire remotely because we hire remotely. No, that's not the point. The whole point is that you're utilizing this remote workforce as a strategy, enabling market growth, building more resilient teams, and then unlocking new customer insights through, as you said, diverse perspectives. I think that's a really important aspect of this remote hiring. And if it's done thoughtfully with compliance and that the culture from the company, then I think embedding those both from day one of the employee is going to be really important and key for hiring remotely from day one. So yeah, I really enjoy that, and I think that diversifying perspectives of the company is a really important piece as well. So thanks for that, Fernando. Really enjoyed that. And then I know we sort of spoke about the questions and the challenges and the trends, but what kind of questions do the best HR leaders ask when they are evaluating these providers?
I'm thinking about compliance and risk comes very often into the conversation. So with the question, one question that comes to my mind is, how do we ensure local labor law in each country, right? And here at RemoFirst, we ensure local labor law in every country by working with an in-country legal experts and continuously monitoring regulatory updates. So our local entities handle employment contracts, benefits, taxes, and terminations according to the each country-specific labor laws, ensuring fully compliance and reduce risk for our business. This is for your business to our customers. Then speed and scalability. So how fast and how scalable can we help them? And then this is a question customers and HR leaders comes to us very often with. So how fast can you onboard new hires, right? I have someone that I just identified the talent. Can I employ them tomorrow? So at RemoFirst, we can onboard new hires in as little 5 to 7 business days. And once we have all the necessary documentation, our global team ensures a smooth, compliant process so your talent can start working quickly, no matter where they are located. This is very important because maybe that candidate is having conversations with different customers, and the customer that comes to us with that need, going to imply him, can offer him offer letter or offer job faster than the competitor, so they're going to get the talent faster than the other company, for example. Then, well, the question that is very often asked is, can you scale quickly across multiple countries, right? So at RemoFirst, we build the business to scale very quickly. So we have a presence in more than 185 countries, and we can help companies hire and manage talent globally fast and compliantly without the need to set up their own legal entity, whether they are hiring in one country or in 10. We make global expansion simple and efficient. So this is very important because companies, they want to centralize the hiring. And just because we do offer our services in more than under 85 countries, this brings a peace of mind and brings that, availability that other vendors cannot offer. And then I would say the fees and the pricing structure. So cost efficient is very important for companies, and RemoFirst plays a very key and fundamental part on this one. So we offer a transparent and a very cost effectiveness price structure. So our EOR services starts from $199 per employee per month, without no hidden fees. So we don't charge for settled fees, onboarding fees, or termination fees. You pay for what you get. This includes all the compliant employment, all the payroll benefits, and ongoing support. So we also offer volume-based discounts, and we can customize pricing for larger teams. And then I would say not forgetting about the customer experience or the customer support. Sometimes people forget about the experience when it comes to payroll, and that's very important. So one question that I just remember myself is what kind of ongoing support and account management do you offer, right? Do RemoFirst offer? At RemoFirst, we provide a dedicated ongoing support through a dedicated customer success manager and a 24/7 access to a global support team. We assist with everything from local HR and payroll changes to contract updates and terminations. That's very important. Our platform, our digital platform, also gives real-time visibility into global workforce, ensuring smooth operations every step of the way. So these are the type of questions that HR leaders are evaluating when they come to select a provider.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've covered a lot there, and I bet there's millions more questions that get asked. I think, as we mentioned before, the speed and compliance is usually the top things that are being asked, but this they're not only going to be hiring one person, they might actually be hiring a few. And in those multiple countries, over 185, it means that they're thinking about their long-term hiring strategy. So they're not just thinking about the one person that they're hiring now. They might be thinking about, as the business grows, they might also want to be hiring in Spain, Australia, and US, and not only the UK. So I think that long-term provider that we can give is really key. But also they need to know the transparency, because making sure that all those are outlined up front, there's no hidden costs, because usually they've got to speak to their finance and legal teams, and they've all got to be brought into that decision making of what they are going to be spending their budget on. And I think that's also key to a business. They need to know their costs, but usually they also want to have the best cost for the business. And if it's maybe the HR leader which is buying that, they need to prove that this is a reason why. And yeah, ongoing support. I think HR leaders need to know that they're not just getting a setup service, but like a partner who is proactively managing the compliance, updating the legal changes. Somebody based in the UK may not know that something legal, a tax change in Spain has happened, because that they are constantly not going to be updated. But with that local partner and that continuous support from success teams and their account managers, they'll be able to constantly keep that updated and in the loop. And I think that's really key, because with these experts, and as we've mentioned, those local partners, they're the people that are going to be knowing about these updates and going to be able to keep that constantly running and updated without you having to think about it. So yeah, I think that's really key to answering some of those core questions that I know you're probably answering on a daily basis. But I've got some quick fire questions and quick fire things just to ask you, and we can do like a little bounce off session to finish. I think it'll be good to summarize everything we've been through. But I'd love to know some questions. So firstly, I think most HR leaders will also be asking, what region is possibly the best region for hiring right now?
Very good. So I would say LATAM, Latin America. So they are growing the pool talents, tech talent, especially in countries like Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico. Super cost effective compared to North America or Europe. Then you can overlap time zones with the US, making collaboration even easier. Increasing startup ecosystem and strong English skills. I think Latin America is a very good region to watch out. And then Eastern Europe, highly skilled developers and engineers, particularly in Poland, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, and North Macedonia. And then very competitive salaries versus Western Europe and US. So I'll say this too is very good to have a look and to be aware what's going on there. So sometimes we are looking to the talent where everyone is looking to the talent, and it's very expensive. So, and now talent is everywhere, right? So some people, they are in Indonesia because they would like to be in Bali. Other people, they are in Argentina because they want to be there, right? So we just need to find the talent and make sure we have the tools and we have the right partners to employ them compliantly. Let's say.
Absolutely. I think it's key to consider those large talented workforce, those skilled individuals across tech, customer success, marketing, and a lot of these people will be have a strong skilled in English. So it's not, even though but then also they'll have multiple languages as well, which is going to be more beneficial to your business. If they're dealing with different customers and clients, they'll also be able to, as you said, cross communicate with America and Europe as well. I think it's a really good time zone to keep in mind there. And it's constantly growing, as you mentioned. I think it's full of tech hubs and startup communities that have really fueled that innovation and a really strong talent pool. So why wouldn't you play into that while you can? More cost effective for your business, skilled tech workers working remotely, ready to dive in. So yeah, I think it's a really good point to play on there, Fernando. And then, yeah, I'd like to know one of the most surprising requests from a prospect.
Yeah, of course. I can share with you, Leah, that a client once asked me if he could onboard a remote employee who wanted to be paid in cryptocurrency, not in any local currency. At first, it caught us off guard, but it opened up a great conversation about the future of payroll, employee preferences and how flexible global hiring solutions needs to be. While crypto payroll isn't mainstream yet, the requests showed us just how to quickly HR and finance teams must adapt to evolve employee expectations. So in this industry, everything is evolving very fast, and being flexible and being top of mind and being a watch out for ideas and what's the market and the HR leads are requesting and adopting in our platform, in our teams, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows that, as we said, from 10, 20 years ago, the world is changing so fast, and um, everyone needs to realize that even payment methods could be changing. So maybe something that no one would consider 10 years ago is considering now. So I think that's like a really cool element to showcase how the future of even payroll is changing there, which is really cool. And it's definitely shaping 2025 and beyond there. And then I think it would be really great to just finish off with a final bit of advice from yourself. So, if you had one piece of advice for HR leaders considering global hiring or looking into an EOR service, what would that be?
Very good. I would say start with compliance, but build for agility. So global hiring isn't just about ticking legal boxes. It's about creating a scalable, flexible foundation that supports growth, culture, and employee experience worldwide. Don't let compliance slow you down. Instead, choose partners and tools that embed compliance seamlessly so you can hire fast and smart. And you can use RemoFirst for that. So we are very experts on that topic. So
Absolutely. And I think that really finishes us off today. I think if there's one thing to take away from today's conversation, as you just said, is that remote hiring isn't just about moving fast, it's about building smart, compliance workforce. And the best HR leaders that are creating these global employment strategies are making sure that they're utilizing services like EOR. So thank you so much, Fernando, for sharing such grounded, real world insights. I think it's really cool and amazing to actually hear it from someone who's involved in these daily pain points, challenges, and trends. And you can see how that's constantly been evolving since you started here. And of course, listeners, if you are looking to scale internationally, if you want to create a hiring strategy that will make you more resilient, flexible, and future ready, then of course, Fernando is your perfect person to chat to. Head over to our website if you want to hear any more, and he'll be linked in all of our socials. But thank you so much for tuning in today. And of course, thank you, Fernando. And until next time, keep building those
thank you,
global
Leah.
teams. Thank
It was
you,
a pleasure.
everyone.
Have a nice day. Bye
Bye.
bye.